Carlos Castaneda describes tensegrity as a modern version of ancient tradition which originated in ancient Mexico. And what connection does tensegrity have to the ancient seers, and what is the new strategy with regards to their knowledge?
Okay. Carlos Castaneda has described the beginnings of his lineage as reaching back as far as 27 generations. And if you do the math on that, that's before the time of Christ. And we have to realize that the human being, the evolution of the human being, was in a very different phase then than the human being is now. And that was a phase of extreme concreteness and extreme physicality and even warlike mode. And so the seers living at that time, how they got to states of heightened awareness was through very concrete means. I think in many other traditions, as well as ours, it's easily assumed that if you walk in the desert without food and water for 40 days, you will have a vision. You will change your perception. Something dramatic is going to change in you. And so this was the way that those old ancient seers approached moving their assemblage point and reaching states of heightened perception. They did not choose to do it on an internal level, to do it by looking inside of themselves. Because they lived in a concrete exterior world, they moved their assemblage point by concrete exterior means. And without a recapitulation, which is a review of one's life, they became, I think in the end, as I was told, extremely egotistical. And so they chose then to exert physical control over the weather, like wanting to control the wind, wanting to control the water in the rivers, wanting to even control other people. Now, around the time of the Teotihuacanos and the Toltecs in Mexico, which is around 750 A.D., the human being had changed quite a bit. And he was just beginning to get a little bit of abstractness in him. And what the seers of that time saw, that they didn't have to jump off bridges and jump off cliffs and stuff to attain illumination, that they could simply go inside of themselves. And they developed a tool called the recapitulation, which what they found in reviewing their scenes from their lives, their normal, everyday physical lives, was afterwards they were not attached to them anymore. And therefore, they moved their assemblage point by being unattached to the physical world, whereas the old seers were very attached to it. And so today, we are descendants from this latter, more abstract line of seers. And that is why our tools in tensegrity, the magical passes, the recapitulation, the dreaming, they're pretty much all from the Teotihuacanos and the Toltecs at Tula.
Thank you, Rennie. And speaking about modern tensegrity, what's the strategy? What is preserved from the line of the ancient seers in the today's knowledge?
I think the clearest and the simplest way to explain this is that we are abstract. We are not concrete seers anymore. So that is the new strategy, is how do we become more and more abstract? How do we, by going inside of ourselves, in essence, go outside of ourselves or leave ourselves behind, to then open ourselves up to the fuller view, the heightened awareness?
Okay, thank you. And this brings us to the question, what was it like for you to be a beginner with Carlos Castaneda with tensegrity?
I think everybody needs to realize that we all begin just like the old seers did, in a very physical state. And then we evolve through this work to an abstract state. So, I had met Carlos during the last 10 years of his life. And so I'm fresh to tensegrity. I'm fresh off the block. I'm fresh out of a marriage, a divorce, children, et cetera, et cetera. And here I come landing in front of him. And here is this being, him, that had spent 45 years doing this work. And he is so abstract, and he is so gracious, and he is so patient, and he is so kind. And when we're in his presence, he had so much energy that he could move the assemblage point of a room to where his was. And for the moments or the hours that the lecture was going on, the room was entirely quiet, and everyone would have guaranteed that they understood every single word he was saying. Then, when you left the meeting hall, you were your old regular self again, and you didn't understand a gosh darn thing. And so it became the individual journey of each listener, of each one of us, to make that journey from our own concreteness to abstractness, so that we could then understand the abstract principles that he was speaking about.
And getting back to our practitioners, to the beginners, to, well, any kind of practitioners of tensegrity, how do you see the growth of awareness in them? Are there any particular, let's say, indicators?
Well, I see the seasoned practitioner, and seasoned is not necessarily measured in years. It's measured in intention to do this work or commitment to do this work. A person could have an amazing commitment to do this work and has only done it for 2 years and reach a very high level. Or he or she can be kind of a little lazy about it and reach a different level. But people who are committed to this, over time, they do become very abstract. Their personal selves are no longer very important. If they make a mistake in life, it's so easy for them to say, yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah, I'm responsible for that. How can I help you? How can I change it? How can I correct it? Whereas you get the person who's brand new in front of Carlos Castaneda, and he might say, well, how come you wore those shoes today? That person is turning 3 shades of red. It's so self-important. Can't even begin to see the abstractness of any question. The other thing I see about more the seasoned practitioners is they do have that fuller view. When you're outside of yourself, you have a moment to be grateful for your surroundings and grateful for other people. I find that in our current society, one of the hardest things to do is to give a compliment. Instead of, oh yes, that's a nice dress, or, you got a good job. To actually give a sincere compliment, like, wow, you really have a very deep soul. Because when we are in our very concrete and self-centered state, what happens is if I give a compliment to you, that means that I'm not good. But you see, from an abstract place, it just comes from this beautiful place of love and appreciation. And that's what I see in many, many seasoned practitioners over time. They get to this place. They, by understanding themselves through their recapitulation, they understand everybody else. And they have this ultimate compassion.
Okay. So which tools are most efficient to speed up this process of becoming abstract, of learning how to be abstract? And actually, which of these tools will be used at the workshop in St. Petersburg?
Yes, you see, we at Clear Green really attempt to give the practitioner a mirror image of our own process. And when we first met Carlos, the prerequisite to attending tensegrity classes or to attend his lectures, etc., was to do recapitulation. And he would suggest that you go home every night after work and you recapitulate for a couple hours. And he would call the next day and he would say, well, what'd you recapitulate? So, and then you'd cough every little thing up that your last boyfriend made you cry, and, that your parents don't love you, and, oh my gosh. And he would just laugh. And you would just couldn't figure out what the heck he was laughing about, because for you it was so serious. So through the recapitulation is really the major tool, and we teachers of tensegrity do understand that it's very challenging for many people to do it by themselves. Of course, we've read in the books about the formal recapitulation. You sit in a enclosed space. You sit in your bathtub, your closet. You make yourself a crate, whatever, and you sit there and you just make a list of all the people you've known, and you move your head from side to side, breathing, remembering. And then afterwards, after you do a couple hours, you go and tell somebody about what you saw. Because if you keep it inside, your self-importance stays intact. As soon as you tell a witness, all those little foolish things, your self-importance is broken. So realizing that it's challenging for people to do this on their own, in our workshops we have put a large dose of recapitulation in. Yes, in our workshops you'll have the magical passes, which help move your assemblage point and help get you to that really refined, high perceptual state, which is, in our terms, the area of our energy body, or our essence. And then we will find scenes through many different means. Sometimes we walk, sometimes we sit, and then we take them. We recapitulate them in this tool that we've brought out over the last 2 years, which is called the Theater of Infinity, which is very sophisticated. Because in this tool, if I had a scene, okay, I have a bad mommy scene. Mommy so many years ago was hitting me on the head one more time, So I'm playing out this scene, and somebody else, Elena, you're sitting there playing my mommy hitting me over the head or pretending to hit me over the head,
Mm-hmm.
And so I play the original scene. And then what I do is I practice a magical pass to get a new view, to change my perception from concrete perception to abstract perception. After I do a magical pass, I then change my behavior in the scene, and I play the scene again with myself doing something different. And then the other people in the scene change too. And then I'll do this again. I'll do another magical pass, get another view, get another new intention, and I will play the scene again one last time. What this does is this is such a complete tool for recapitulation. Number one, you find the scene. Number two, you're already sharing it with witnesses because other people are playing the roles of your parents, your husband, your boss, etc. And three, you are stepping into one of the most challenging places, which is the not doings. Which is, once you have done that recapitulation and okay, I've got this habit of always, if I'm in a room of men and women, I will always pay attention to the men more. Okay? So and how do I not do that? And that on our own, again, that's challenging. But in the Theater of Infinity, you are not doing it twice or three times. And that's the value of this tool called Theater of Infinity. Carlos and Carol Tiggs and Florinda Donner Grau and Tasha Abler were always interested in how can we get to infinity faster. And so their apprentices, us, we did a lot of different things. And so we are bringing out to you the things that are when you're ready, of course, the things that are most effective.
Okay, so this sounds like tensegrity, it's not about being a lonely warrior. It's more like engage all these tools and also share the knowledge, share your experience with the other practitioners. And this is how it works with all the non-doings and with recapitulation, sharing your what you found, etc. So, do you really believe that tensegrity practitioners can actually reach to the infinity by themselves without an agwa or a guru? Because most people are still looking for a teacher, while at the tensegrity workshops we hear that teachers are not needed.
Mm-hmm. So there's I think there's a little misunderstanding here. And, we read those wonderful books of Carlos's, and every single page is him with Don Juan. Him with Don Juan, him with Don Juan,
Uh-huh.
And we are given, because we read a whole book in an evening, we are left with the idea that he and Don Juan lived together, that he was with Don Juan for every minute of every day for 14 years. And we don't know, we don't even care how he managed to get a PhD in anthropology at UCLA. I guess it was magic because he was down there in Mexico with Don Juan. Well, that is not the case. In Carlos's earlier books, if you noticed all those different dates, some of them are months apart, a year apart, because Carlos was not constantly at Don Juan's side. Please understand that Carlos was doing this in the age before cell phones, in the age before email. So when Don Juan would send Carlos a signal through the ether, through his energy body, from Don Juan's energy body to Carlos's energy body, and Don Juan would say, time to see me, Joe, time to see me, come down to see me. You know how many times Carlos got that wrong? You know how many times he went down there and Don Juan didn't call him and he couldn't find him? You know how many times he went down there and found him? So it's like Carlos maybe would spend 1 or 2 weeks with Don Juan, and then he'd come back to LA and he would do his homework. And his homework was the same as us. We do our recapitulation, we do our movements, and we try to change our behavior, our socialized behavior with the not doings. So yes, Carlos Castaneda was trained as a Nahual, and yes, his teacher was Don Juan, but it wasn't 24/7. And so, in essence, Carlos Castaneda did bring himself to tensegrity. He took notes, he listened well, and he followed instructions. I think we all can do that, And look where Carlos got, and look where Florinda got, and Taisha and Carol. Look where they got. Amazing places. So, we can do this too. The thing that Carlos did, because he was the last Nahual, and it's written that way, and he knew it is not a time for other Nahuals. And that is why we say that there is no need for another Nahual, because his lineage was ended. Instead of closing the lineage and disappearing into the ether without making it public, he chose to make it public. He chose to give this gift to the world. He chose to write those books. And those books are an example of one person's movement journey from concreteness to abstractness. And he never wanted people to mimic him or to be like him or to even want to talk to him. He wanted people to use the books as an example that they would find their own journey. But you see, we are so socialized to follow certain things. Our education we are graded in school by repeating the correct answers back. And so we think that our own personal journey to enlightenment is there are correct answers and there are incorrect answers. No. There's no one correct way except your way. And because of each and every person's individual energetic configuration, which it will be different, that journey will be different. And you see the differences between Taisha's journey and Florinda's journey and Carlos's journey. Amazingly different.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah, and these were people, Carlos didn't meet Taisha and Florinda at the beginning. Each one of them met Don Juan individually. They didn't even know about each other. They too would go down to, Mexico once or twice every couple months. And they too didn't always make it, didn't always find him. And then they came back and do their work because it was very important to live in the normal world while being able to attract and attach yourself to the infinite. This path is not about running away into the desert or running to sit on a mountaintop. It's about living right here, right now, with all the same people around you, but you changing yourselves.